All right, guys. We're going to do a little pause for a surprise here. Very excited. Hello, Doug.
Hey, Kat, how are you? Maybe I should turn this sideways with that. Oh, that's better.
Oh my gosh, you're
That's
so much
better.
better at this than Fulton County
I,
and the defense team in this case that we're watching right now.
Don Samuels is an amazing lawyer. Who's the other attorney there
McDermott?
for the? I don't know
McDermott?
him for the defense.
Uh, I can pull up, maybe you can see it a little bit. He's at the stand right now with a
I
ponytail.
I can't tell if that's someone I know or not. Anyway, Don is
Joel McDermott.
fantastic. Oh yeah, I don't know him. I don't
All
know
right,
him.
so we'll have to see. Next time you'll see him, you'll be like, oh.
Oh yeah, I saw
Um,
you on the TV.
it's wonderful to see you outside getting some fresh air. The chat is showing a ton of love.
Yeah, thank you guys.
We know
I
you're going to be
can't see the
hanging out with
chat at the
Justice
moment.
Served.
Oh yeah, 6. I told them. Yeah, I mean, I came on all these things after I won YSL, right? So I'd kind of be a coward to not show my face after I lost a
I
humongously lost a case.
aside from, and there's a, you're well aware of the Twitter discourse on
Oh, am
public
I
defenders,
freezing?
and no, you're fine actually. I can hear your voice. Your picture's freezing. Say something. Oh, maybe you are freezing.
Hold on, now I'm. Hello, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. You just
Okay,
frozen
I'm
a
sorry
little
about
bit,
that. Okay, yeah, we're all good now. I went off Wi-Fi because I think it was causing me trouble. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
as
The
it does.
discourse about public defenders on Twitter.
I think you had, like, this case, this timing is beautiful to show you did great work advocating for your client, and we're in the midst of this viral conversation about how attorneys shouldn't be representing people that are accused of horrific things, and
You know,
just a head shaker.
Oh my God, it's a head shaker on so many levels. Like, if they did not have an attorney representing them, you couldn't try the case. I mean, for one thing. For another thing, okay, let's play devil's advocate. Say someone did a terrible thing and they had a really bad attorney and they didn't have the best prosecutor. What you'd end up with is a case, let's say they get convicted. You'd have a case riddled with errors that would get overturned on appeal. So if you've got a couple of attorneys in there that know what they're doing, and you really think someone went and did this terrible thing, and how can you represent them? At least, hopefully, you'll have a case tried pretty cleanly. So that if there is, and I'm going to use a Brian Steeleism, God forbid, a if there is, God forbid, a verdict against that individual, maybe
It'll
it'll hold up
stick.
on appeal for the state. So, I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
I
You
don't
want
get
the
the
good
whole thing.
attorneying.
Yeah, you want the good attorney. You want the
I'll
good
say
attorney.
we might have to do a panel rant again, get a bunch of people on, because the discourse has continued over a couple days, and I think the timing of your representation of Kassotis going to trial is right in the middle of that discourse. But I do
Yeah,
have one YSL question,
sure.
and we never got to do an interview. Max got busy or wanted to avoid you. What happened
I can
with that
understand.
40?
He's intimidated by my intellect, so I understand.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What happened with that 40-second Detective Thorpe appearance on the stand?
Oh
When he
God,
gets back up on the stand.
it's, I don't even remember what you're talking about. Give me more context, and maybe it'll trigger my mind.
All right, so there were arguments about Thorpe coming back to the stand. He had already testified. State wanted to bring him back up. There were some arguments before he gets up there, and then all of a sudden he's there. The state asks 2 questions of him, and they say he's done, and Thorpe looks confused. And you said it was an underrated, one of the biggest victories behind the scenes.
Oh crap! Next time you give me a heads up, and I'll try
Okay,
to figure out what it's about, and I'll
we'll
go
get a
back and
tweet
look.
from you.
I think you know what I need. If you can find a clip from Thugger Daily or a YouTube clip or something, so that I
You
can
just
look
want to
back
see
on
his
it.
face stumped.
Or as a
Uh,
witness, I would say, do you have anything that could refresh my memory? Because that's what I need. Because I don't remember
None.
that.
I'll do a quick search, but while I look for it, I mean, I'd like, and again, if you can't answer whatever, just let us know.
I
Um,
will.
how did you feel about the state deferring openings? in the Kassotis case?
You know, I have to admit that I was half expecting it. So half expecting it, meaning I was prepared that she might do that. Um, she's a pretty straightforward prosecutor and didn't play a lot of games with me, but she's going to try to get advantages in court. So it was fine. I was prepared to go. Obviously I would like to go last. I don't want to go first. But in Georgia, the prosecution has a lot of advantages they don't have in other places. So, for example, this prosecutor in this case is from New York City. In New York City, the defense gets to go last in closing. So I would have loved to have gone last in closing. There are things I didn't address because I wasn't sure exactly what she would say in closing. And I didn't want to, I don't know what the right word is. I didn't want to address something that could be advantageous for her that I wasn't sure she was going to address herself.
So I actually, since we're on that subject, I think she very clearly went through the issues with the shovel and the deer hunting kit, maybe not in response to your motion for a directed verdict, but the judge's commentary that he had some concerns about the sufficiency of the evidence behind those two counts. And I think she adapted on her feet to make sure she hammered that in closing.
She's a very good lawyer and a very good prosecutor, and she did adapt. And then the other thing that she did that I wasn't sure if she would do it or not, which is, honestly, I don't think there's any really decent motive behind Kassotis's alleged murder. I'm gonna keep saying alleged murder of his wife. None of the motives that were presented in opening did I think were compelling. And then, how do I put this? There was more she could have done with the third wife, Sam, that she didn't do. So I thought that because she didn't do that, she may not necessarily go with the theory that Mr. Kassotis murdered his wife in an act of rage, finding out she wasn't pregnant, because there wasn't any testimony that he found out she was faking her pregnancy. But anyway, she did end up going there. So I didn't address that in my closing because I was not sure if it would come up in her closing, because it was not a theory that had been even hinted at during the course of the trial. So I wish I could have gone last.
She barely made a mention of it in opening. I had to re-listen to it last night to realize that she made a mention of the three. And I looked at the ME too. The ME talked about it for 10 seconds, refers to it as defects consistent with something sharp. There's nothing in evidence suggesting that the ME determined they were stab wounds or punctures of any sort. But then in closing, she drove the point home that it was an angry to the belly.
Yeah,
and
the jury
you did not have a chance to
that.
get back up there.
No, I couldn't respond. I mean, I hate not being able to respond. And the way she did that, the jurors reacted with some degree of shock. I know y'all couldn't see them, but
I jumped on stream.
The jurors jumped as well.
Did you get to speak with the jurors after? Did you get a sense, were they willing to speak with the attorneys at all?
I think they would have been, but the judge did not do what I've seen in the past. He didn't hold them behind and say, hey, the practice of law is a practice and we have to learn and get better. So if you don't mind, if you're interested, would you stay behind in the jury room so the attorneys could speak with you? I thought he was going to do that. He kind of indicated to me he was going to do it, but he never did that. So I chased one down out in the parking lot after they did an interview. There was only one left. I really did. They were doing an interview with Court TV. So I was able to speak to that juror afterward.
Oh, cool. I'll have to go check out, guys. So you did an interview with Court TV, and you think a juror is doing one with Court TV?
No, a juror did one with Court TV. Already? I would say roughly 1 o'clock today. I'm bad with time, roughly 1, and then I did one immediately after. I haven't seen that juror's interview with Court TV, but I spoke to that juror after his interview with Court TV.
Oh, and pertinent, we have a question from the chat. Did you see the chat when you stated, because we had questions about the Airbnb owner and the repairs. So pertinent is wondering if you looked at the chat and saw anything.
I did not have the chat on at that point in time. Sometimes I would have the chat on, sometimes I would not. In this trial, your chat was the least cruel to my client. So I would tend to keep yours up because I didn't want my client's feelings to be hurt too much by reading what people were saying about him.
Yeah, I appreciate one of the things I like about the chat, and I think the chat is independent of me, although I appreciate they hang out with me. I'll watch the conversations between people in this chat where someone will mold and adapt what they're thinking because they're taking in information and perspectives from one another. And I've never felt during YSL a lot of the opinions were the same because everyone thought the state was a mess. So we had 150 days to get to that conclusion. But here I'm always really excited to see the chat react to things because some people were guilty out the gate and then were like, wait, they didn't request follow-ups on some of this testing? And then other people were like innocent out the gate, and then something really compelling came from a witness that just stuck with them. And it's just a cool way to see what a potential juror might think of things in the moment, in a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, and I've said it other times, I'll sometimes watch chats to try to get some kind of feel for how certain testimony is coming across. It's always hard because people in chats are generally true crime watchers. They have different perspectives, I think, than maybe well, I'm sure they do, than the average juror, but it's the only kind of feedback I can get.
I think the prosecutor,
so I will watch
I
those
wouldn't be
chats at
surprised.
times.
I wouldn't be surprised if the prosecution team is looking at social media feedback, because in closing, I felt like they almost spoke to a true crime audience. And I just, from what I had seen, looking at other opinions, trying to make sure I'm exploring and not stuck with inside my own bubble, is, justice for Mindy. This case is about Mindy. And whereas I personally don't look at cases as being about the victim, I think the convergence of justice for the victim comes from the right process being afforded to the person who's accused and standing trial. Whereas I think...
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
That's okay. No, that's really it.
I mean, I don't disagree with the state. And I tried to say that this case was about Mindy and who, did her in. I hate to say unalive, it's so odd sounding. But who did that to Mindy? It's not about whether or not there's a Jim McIntyre, but it's hard to run away from Jim McIntyre when Jim McIntyre is such a heavy presence. And of course, I don't want to have to put the jury in a position almost like a Karen Reed-like situation. I don't want to present an alternative theory to a jury. I just want to poke holes in the state. I really do. But I'm afraid the jurors may have been in a position where you either believe there's a Jim McIntyre running around or you believe Nicholas Kassotis did this. And it's hard to believe in Jim McIntyre.
I was going to say that, and we've gone over this a little bit, but to speak your piece, so I'm not speaking for you. The chat wants to know about your thoughts on Nick going on the stand.
Oh, I'm not going to.
Or you can speak generally.
In general, no defense attorney wants their clients to take the stand except in very limited circumstances. And ultimately, it's up to there are very few decisions that, this might surprise some people. There are very few decisions that a client gets to make during the course of a trial. They get to decide whether to plead guilty or not. They get to decide whether to take the stand. There's not many others. So if a client decides to take the stand, that's their constitutional right. And I don't have any control over that one way or the other. I'm not going to get into what I advised Nick Kassotis to do.
There you go. So guys, we got to judge from what we saw play out in court. There we go. I do have just from what you just said, the strategy, attorneys should be in charge of strategy. Obviously, you treat your client as if they're almost part of your strategy team, right? We saw that with Diamante Kendrick, you're side by side. We saw you interacting with Nicholas Kassotis, which is very humanizing. So I love when attorneys do that. But for something like the decision in general to take an affirmative defense of any kind, how much of a say, because that involves essentially an acknowledgement of guilt. I did the thing, but I'm not culpable because of this other reason. So does a defendant have more say in a call to take an affirmative defense or not?
I would say no. Legally, I would say no. Practically, of course, you're going to let them weigh in on that. But there were yes, that's the situation. So they can have some say, but ultimately, I'm the one that gets to decide on trial strategy.
Okay, that's actually, thank you for, I didn't know and I always wondered, so thank you for that. Erin got some context. Let's see if this refreshes your recollection.
Okay, let me see.
Erin also an attorney, by the way. So when we say she's refreshing your recollection, she's not at the trial level. She's in the post-conviction space. Total gem. But she says Thorpe took the stand again on day 156. That was November
Oh,
5th. So it's just you and Max.
okay.
Testified he's assigned to Christian McMiller and Darius Ford's investigation, when and where it occurred, and that it is still unsolved. No cross.
Had we been to the bench before that to
Yes.
argue? I think so. Okay, first of all, what I'm about to tell you is probably completely wrong. But but if I'm remembering correctly, there were aspects of the Christian McMiller, Darius Ford investigation that may have involved some of our clients. And perhaps we were able to keep the details out so that when he took the stand, he was incredibly limited on what he could say, if I recall. But I mean, I don't know what happened yesterday, let alone November 5th. But I think it was something like that. There was going to be potentially, there was potentially going to be other testimony coming in that Max and I thought was not appropriate to come in and would not have been helpful to our case. And I believe we were able to have the judge rule that it could not come in and that Thorpe could only take the stand and speak that very limited amount. And that's why we didn't have cross or anything else.
He looked so stunned when they told him that was it.
Well, I'm sure
That
they
was the
prepped him
time.
to go into a lot more detail
Mhm.
about it. So, oh my God, that's really, I guess I flushed most of that case from my memory.
I don't think we blame you. I mean, we've recently been doing a rewind. We've been busy covering the Kassotis trial, and we did a self-defense case right before that. But we were doing a YSL reunion, and it's interesting. We all gathered together to watch things, but then all of us are picking up things that we didn't pay attention to before, like Michael Sprinkle
Mhm.
subpoenaing a witness to the grand jury without an indictment, which was
Yeah,
just
I
like,
mean,
we never heard about that. I mean, we heard about it, but didn't click. It didn't click to us until we
yeah.
rewatched it.
Mike Sprinkle is a very bright guy, by the way. Very, very bright guy because Squirrel Brain Thorpe, as I guess as Woody called him, um, he really botched the entire investigation of the unaliving of Donovan Thomas. He really did. And Sprinkle came the closest to at least putting forth a coherent theory. Thorpe's theory was based solely around a witness who Sprinkle very quickly determined wasn't even at the scene.
Yep.
And Thorpe was like all in on this. So at least Sprinkle's theory was plausible, whereas Thorpe's was just flat out wrong.
Oh man. Yeah, that was a whole
Oh,
time. There's a little more
Stephen
context from
Shannon.
Aaron as
Yeah.
well.
Okay,
So
I
I
obviously
think good for
remember
the
very
chat.
little of it.
And
Don't
then
you,
any
lesson learned, don't ask me about old stuff.
it's not that old, Doug.
It's old for me.
But
I have a
I
limited
use
memory in my 61-year-old brain.
a metaphor of, everyone's familiar with retail. You're going shopping at the grocery store. The store is front faced. It looks beautiful. It's fully stocked. Well, if you were to try to put another can on that shelf, you're going to end up pushing a can off further down the line. And that's the way the brain works with memories. Too much going on, trying to put in something else is going to fall off the shelf.
It's a FIFO stack in computer science terms. Okay,
Oh, we got a nerd moment. Certified nerd here from
there you
Doug
go.
Weinstein.
There you go.
Do
Trials
you?
coming up.
Yeah.
Um, Criminal trials. Yeah, I do. I don't, I don't, because criminal defense is this way, I don't know my definitive trial schedule. Sometime in the next few months, I have um, an assault case coming up. I don't know what you can say on YouTube and what gets bleeped out. Can I speak
Oh, go ahead. Go
freely?
ahead with anything. Yep.
Okay. There's a sexual assault case coming up in South Georgia. Nothing particularly sexy or interesting about it. I
That's very a
have,
lawyer characterization of a case.
I mean, just, it's a straightforward case. I don't think anything that Like the Kassotis case, I knew would be very interesting to an audience for months. And I would tell people like briefly about it and no one had even heard of it. But I've got like a sexual assault case. I've got a um, molestation case coming up, trial coming up, a few things like that. Nothing that I could see being televised or that is in a Fulton County courtroom that's televised on a regular basis.
Well, there we go. And I would imagine the sexual assault case probably won't be streamed anyway. So,
No, that won't be
um,
streamed. It's in a tiny little town.
oh, so two reasons. Yeah. Typically, that nature, special victims will end up being
Yeah.
more cautious with the media access. Um, I do have a slightly different question, changing subjects. Did you object before opening about the presentation of the Home Depot screenshots? Like there was like screenshots of the Home Depot receipt and overlaid over the surveillance footage of
That's
Nicholas Kassotis.
those can come in as demonstratives. So when they were admitted into evidence, I objected to them coming in as evidence. So they were only admitted as demonstratives and they
To
did
be
not go
shown up.
back. Yeah, they did not go back to the jury. So
Cool.
there's a number of exhibits you'll see. Um, you'll hear if you paid attention to those tiny little side comments where I would say, no objection as a demonstrative, and then it would come in as a demonstrative.
Cool. Good to know. I think that's very sharp. Coming from the civil background, being aware of these things. Do you feel like, your civil practice, and I've learned so much from you when you guest with I'm Not a Lawyer But Mel, and you
Mhm.
talked about intellectual property and how that's
Oh,
all
thank
geared
you.
to protect the consumer's right and impression of who they're purchasing from, what they're purchasing from.
Yeah,
All of that
but
background in the civil space, we get into this trial, and there's a lot of records, financial records, the medical records, research that I would typically associate with civil litigation. Um, but then we don't see any records produced. Do you have any thoughts on
okay. So yeah,
how?
we can talk about that. Yeah, this was kind of a very dot the i's, cross the t's in the weeds thing. But what happens a lot of times is that there's certain business records that want to be produced during the course of a trial. And in YSL, they just did this the sluggish and most awkward way possible, but they put witnesses on the stand. Yes, this is actually a record that we keep, blah, blah. So instead, what the state did in this case, in order to expedite things, is they would get certified business records so that you didn't have to have a witness get on the stand and go through all the authentication portions. So basically, they were pre-authenticated. So she was just able to dump them in. And then instead of belaboring all of it in front of the jury, she would just draw off the pertinent portions of those records.
Yeah, it was
How
very
many people
efficient, I
just
think, as a
dropped off your
trial.
YouTube because of that boring part about evidence? But yeah, we do
Oh,
that in
I don't
civil
know.
a lot. We do that in civil a lot. We do that in civil a lot. So that's a very
Are there any
civilly thing.
like civil or criminal cases that have tuned you in? It doesn't need to be like obviously if it's coming across your feed because it's super popular. It can be a nerdy thing that's catching your attention.
I'm not really a crime watcher. I watched, well, this is over. I mean, the last thing I paid attention to was the Diddy trial, which of course was hard to pay attention to because if you wanted to follow it, you had to follow it on X. But that's what I did. And I mostly followed that because of Brian and Nicole being involved, and also because of my belief that it was a bullshit RICO charge, that they had overcharged it. So I kind of followed it for that reason. I don't have anything on my radar at the moment. I've really been distracted by this trial that I just finished. And I'm in the middle of a nasty arbitration between business partners on the civil side that I'm going to have to
Oh,
immediately pivot to tomorrow morning.
no, that does never sound fun.
Yeah,
Litigation, well, being a party to litigation, never fun, never
no,
fun.
no.
Oh, I think one other thing, there's an approach where you could point to a third party culprit, and if you're really going to hammer in, you've got to be ready to present a lot. And here you kind of had Jim. But you leaned more into the lack of investigation paired with what the state presenting being circumstantial evidence. And I mean, we're dealing with GBI, these lack of follow-up requests. We had more than one witness. I remember the toxicologist. She mentioned, well, I asked for that, but they never responded to my
Yeah.
request. Another witness, same thing. And then, in my opinion, Tracy Sands, when he was asked about this and the follow-ups, he passed the buck and said, well, they never followed up. But to me, it was his job. I took it was his job to follow up.
It's his team. He's directing all of this. But I think the jury could see him passing the buck too. I don't know what that got me to. But when you lose a trial, and now I've now lost two, I guess. But when you lose a trial, and this is going to happen to me for days. I think about the things that I could have done differently or the errors that I made. I wish I would have hammered home. I don't know if it would have made a difference. I wish I would have hammered home.
Oh, I think we lost you right after you said you wish you would hammer home.
What were
Still
you
don't
about to
hear
say?
you. There you go.
Can you hear me
We
now?
lost you right
Yeah,
as
I'm
you said
sorry.
hammered home.
No, I'm sorry because I didn't put the iPhone on focus. I wish that I would have hammered home a little more on the fingernail clippings in the closing. They got these fingernail clippings from Mindy. They said that Emmy said she had defensive wounds. So
Did
here
they
she
do
is with
any
defensive.
testing? I know they didn't find
No,
DNA, but did they test them at all?
zero testing on the fingernail clippings. And
Chat, remember we talked about that.
and I brought it up in cross, but I didn't use it in my closing. So that was a mistake. I should have hit on that some more when I was going through all the stuff they didn't do. And that's a big one. I mean, defensive wounds and you're not looking at the fingernail clippings.
That's what you hear in trial watchers look for that. We hear that in every single trial I've watched. We got the fingernail clippings. We looked under them and saw evidence of this or not, or we tested it. And big TV thing that you expect that actually does play out in real life.
Yeah.
And
And they just ignored the clippings.
And that was so weird to me because he mentioned that when describing we couldn't see the photos, but when describing the photos, he said that they had the tech bags over the hands, and tech bags, he explained that we use the paper because when you use plastic, and interestingly, we're watching a trial where the parts are found in plastic bags, it encourages decomposition and messes with the integrity of the evidence. So we have this testimony from the medical examiner in the Kassotis trial. They prepared the hands for the testing that you would expect to be done. They preserved it. They did the proper steps, but then didn't do any testing.
And they even took the clippings. It's not like they neglected to take the fingernail clippings. They took her fingernail clippings, but then they did. I mean, I'm dying to know what the result would be if they did DNA testing on the fingernail clippings.
And we'll never know.
Obviously, I thought rationally, logically, there was reasonable doubt. And so did I not hammer home how high a burden that was enough? Did I?
Your closing argument was great. I think in unison, the chat, even aside from their own opinion, the people that thought guilty were still like, that's great closing. And the people that felt like reasonable doubt, they're like, yes, he's doing great. So and in hindsight, you couldn't rebut. So
no, unfortunately, I couldn't, Kat. Well, I'm gonna have to drop off, Kat.
Yes, we're gonna go check you out at
thing.
JSTV. We're gonna check you out. Thanks so much for jumping on.
Thanks for having me on, Kat. And I love your feeds during the trial. I'll even watch you on some other trials at times. I'm not
he
gonna say
loves you,
which
chat.
ones. And I love the chat. I love your chat. So. And I love all the support I get. It makes me feel good. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, boost his ego, chat.
There you go. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
We'll go watch you at 6.
Okay. It sounds good. Bye.